So I'm going to start with a Bible quiz, and I'm going to go through these real fast. And I promised that probably I'm 99% sure that you've never heard this. And the way I figured that is I'm 70 and I've been hearing Bible lessons all my life, and I've never heard it. So that's my standard. I can think of a couple of people that are here that might have already gotten there and figured this out before me, but we'll see. So there's 10 questions, and I'm going to go through them pretty quick, and you don't have to keep score. Just kind of in your mind, see how you're doing, and see how we go. Well, do you like it so far? I'm drawing a blank, huh? There it was. How many days was Jesus tempted when he fasted in the wilderness? Don't say it out loud. Just kind of keep score in your mind. All right. How many days was Jesus alive and appearing and teaching the apostles after his resurrection and before his ascension? All right. You got that one? How many days and nights did it rain for the flood of Noah? Got it? How many years did the Israelites wander in the wilderness? How many days did the 12 spies go into the promised land to spy out the land? How many days was Moses up on the mountain to receive the 10 commandments and the covenant from the Lord? Got it? Now, he came, after Moses came down and saw the people worshiping the golden calf, he broke the 2 tablets of stone, punished the people, went back up on the mountains. How many days was Moses on the mountain the second time? You know he went twice, right? How many years were the reigns of Saul, David, and Solomon? How many days did Ezekiel lay on his right side after he had just finished laying on his left side for 390 days? Man, that's obscure, isn't it? How many days did Jonah tell the city of Nineveh they had before God would destroy them if they did not repent? Now, who knows the answer to all of them? Oh, you know. Well, Angie knows because she's heard me talk about it all week. She can't escape. When I tell you, you're going to go like this. Are you ready? The answer to all of them is 40. All right, let's back up. Jesus was tempted for 40 days and 40 nights. He was alive and appearing to the apostles 40 days after his resurrection, before his ascension. It rained 40 days and 40 nights. The Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. The 12 spies went into the promised land 40 days. Let's see, Moses was up on the mountain for 40 days. Both times. The years, 40, Saul, David, and Solomon, each one reigned 40 years. How many days did Ezekiel lay on his right side? He laid on his left side for 390 days, prophesying against Israel in the north. And then he laid on his right side, prophesying against Judah in the south for 40 days. That would just get old real fast. God had, Ezekiel had a tough life. How many days did Jonah tell the city of Nineveh they had before God would destroy them if they did not repent? Well, they had 40 days before God was going to destroy them. So, what made me think of that? Well, Chad Dahlheit, when he was here, if you got to hear his, if you don't go back and listen to it, it was excellent. He said he has the same problem I do. Is he's reading along, and he gets caught up in something and goes down a rabbit hole, and all of a sudden he's way over here instead of where he started reading. I don't even remember where I was reading this last week, and I was thinking, I seen the number 40 a lot. Now, here's the thing. To the Hebrews, numbers meant a lot more than they do to us. And if you study Ezekiel and Revelation, numbers are extremely important. They are symbolic. And really, I think the number 40 is going to be right there with that. And that's what we're going to talk about, is the pattern of 40. And I want to do this real quick because, number one, my wife says the first part is going to be boring. So hopefully I'll have something for the second part that will bring it home and actually make it important for you. She thinks it's just kind of... It just kind of happened that way, luck of the draw, all right? And I'll let you decide. The Bible really never says this is a pattern. You decide, and you get to choose between Team Angie and Team Ron. Of course, I get to stand up here and talk about my side, and she doesn't get to do that, so... Sorry. Anyway, she thinks it's just kind of happened that way. Well, you decide what you think. The number 40 consistently marks significant spiritual seasons. It's going to be a season of trial, of formation, transition from one phase to another. It's going to be a season of testing. It's going to be a season of waiting, preparation, judgment, and renewal. Now, I'll just tell you at the bottom line where we're going to end this is sometimes we go through those seasons too, don't we? Sometimes you're going through a valley and you kind of look around and say, man, what's going on? Why am I here? Why is all this happening? You may be going through a 40-day period that God is sending to you. And we'll talk about that in the second part of the lesson. So there's the period of trial. It's a period of transition. God sometimes uses 40 as a structured season, long enough to change us, but hopefully it has a potential to lead us to a place. When God allows a 40 season, he's preparing something greater on the other side. Hopefully we get better. We have something that we grow toward. All right, so let's look at some examples. The flood, 40 days and 40 nights. This was a time of judgment and cleansing. Ezekiel lying on his side. There's your judgment against Judah. All right, 40 can represent bearing consequences and calling attention to sin. Do you ever count days that you've been in the valley? I don't do that. I just say, man, it's been a long time. Why am I going? All right, Israel was in the wilderness 40 years. You start looking for the number 40 in the concordance, it's going to mention this a boatload of times. Just as Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. It's going to mention that a lot. Spies in the Canaan, 40 days. This was a time of testing. And you remember, 10 brought back the evil report. Only 2 said, we can do this with God's help. And that was the test, really, more than is it going to be a good place to live. The test was what? Are we going to learn to rely on God? And who did the people believe? Well, they believed the 10 and not the 2. And what happened to that generation? They died. They died wandering in the wilderness. They failed that test, didn't they? That's the test right there. Goliath taunted them for 40 days. I don't think I realized that he taunted them that long. before David got there with his sling and took care of that little situation. Jesus in the wilderness, 40 days. Was that a time of testing for him? Yeah. What's the Bible say? He was tempted in every way that we are, yet without sin. And I really believe he was tempted in ways we can't imagine. Not just during those 40 days, all of his life, on the cross. I can't imagine being tested like that. And yet without sin. All right. Testing exposes faith, fear, and readiness for the breakthrough. All right. There are many lesser-known examples. I didn't even get into a lot of them. Hadn't mentioned them. You can just look up the word 40, and you'll see a boatload of examples there appearing in the lives of the people of the Bible. Are these just coincidences, or did the Lord intervene in these people's lives in some way? Well, you kind of know what side Team Ron is going to say. You decide. How does this even happen? We know the Lord has a part in our lives. And many years ago, in the small groups, we did a lesson on providence. And it really kind of struck home. And I really believe God has a bigger part in our lives than we realize, day to day. And that's providence. The thing about providence, when people say God's working here and now, I'm kind of skeptical. But when you look back in time and say, oh, this is how God worked in my life. And what I said then was providence works best in the rearview mirror. When people say, yeah, God's doing that right now. I don't know about that. Yeah. And so that's kind of how that works in my mind. But we do know in some way the Lord is acting in our lives. We know what the Lord does. Here's the thing. We don't know how he does this. All right? Just because I can't put my finger on it and say, exactly how God works, that doesn't mean he's not working. Does that make sense? So that's where we're going. Is it providence, or does God sometimes give us a nudge? I told my younger brother not long ago, I've been in the valley, right? And I told my younger brother, I just need a good kick to get me out of this. He says, God doesn't do that. That's the other guy. And yeah, that's true. You hate to admit it sometimes when your brother's right. And anyway, how does this happen? God gives wisdom and guidance. James 1:5, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men liberally without reproach, and it will be given to him. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Do we believe that? Yeah, he's directing my path. How? And that's what we don't quite understand. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will guide you with my eye. All right, God opens and closes opportunities. Here's Paul in his missionary journey. He planned to go continue in Asia, but guess what? God sent him over to Europe. Macedonian call. Revelation says, speaking of Christ, he who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens. We talk about the door of opportunity being open. Now's the time. Take advantage of this. I believe God does that. He sets opportunities before us. We need to take advantage of those. And we fail God, we fail ourselves, we fail one another when we see an opportunity there and we don't step through that door. We don't take advantage of that. God has opened that. He has prepared the way for us. He's ready to bless us so many times, and we don't take advantage of it. A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. What's the old saying? Man makes plans and God laughs. And, that's true always. God has plans. All right, God works through circumstances. And I think that's providence right there. We know in all things God works together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Joseph told his brothers, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. At any point in Joseph's life, did he see God's finger making things happen? No, but when he looked back on it, guess what? This is how it turned out. But when he was in the middle of it, he was in a mess. And you got to admire his faith. He kept his faith all through that awful time. And at the end, he could say, you meant for evil, but God meant it for good. And that's a lot of faith right there. Esther 4:14, Mordecai suggested that Esther had come to her position for such a time as this. That right there is our best clue for providence. All of those steps that had to happen for her to be in that place at that time. It's crazy that she would even be there. But guess what? There she was. And Mordecai says, who knows? And, while it's happening, you don't ever say, well, God's doing this. But when you're looking back, you just see the big picture. And always, that's the key. See, I'm all caught up in my little life, doing my little things, and being busy in my little ways. God sees the big picture, always. Isn't that the way it is? Yeah. God sees the big picture, and I'm just seeing all this mess around me, I'm just my little stuff. And God's taking care of the big picture. And isn't that really what we need to do? It is. We need to do our thing with our little lives, Let God take care of the big stuff. Because Matt's father-in-law, Jim Roberts, he did this devotional one time. It's just stuck with me again and again. He says, you got a circle around you, and you take care of the stuff that's inside your circle. And all that stuff that's outside your circle, you can't control that. You can't influence it. You can't do anything about it. Don't worry about that. And Angie and I have this saying, well, that's outside my circle. And what do other people say? It's not my circus and not my monkeys. That's the religious way. It's not my circle, not my monkeys. I can't control that. And, you get caught up in the news. Have we been... We've been having trouble in the Middle East, in Europe. We've been having trouble all over the United States. Guess what? That's outside my circle. That's just, you can't lose sleep over that. All right, God answers prayer. How does God answer prayer? Does God answer prayer? If God doesn't answer prayer, why do we bother praying? Well, of course he answers prayer, but we don't always know how. We ask, and it will be given. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened. I truly believe if a man is asking, seeking, and knocking sincerely, God's going to answer him. God's going to help him find the truth. He's going to open that door of opportunity. Asking, seeking, and knocking. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication. There's those two things. Let your request be made known to God. If we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. We've got the power of the universe listening to us. That's crazy that he should care that much about us, to bother listening to what do we have to say. That's amazing. Elijah and the rain. Recall how Elijah prayed and God controlled the rain. And what does James say? It says, Elijah, who is a man just like us. He was not a superhero. He didn't wear a cape. But what? He's just like us. Like passions. And that's a powerful prayer. I can't imagine praying and stopping the rain. I can't imagine praying 3 years later and, hey, the rain started. That's just crazy. But he did that, didn't he? And God answered his prayer. God provides our needs. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. My God shall supply all your needs according to his riches in glory by Jesus Christ. David wrote, I have been young and I am now old, yet have I seen the righteous forsaken. God provides for our needs. God protects and delivers. The angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear him and delivers him. You remember, was it Elijah or Elisha? I get them mixed up. He prayed for his servant to see what I see. And what was it? There's a whole army of angels all around. Which one was it, Elijah or Elisha? All right, Elisha. That's one of my favorites. You think I'd remember the guy's name, right? The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them. How does God do that? I don't know. Wouldn't you like to know? And one day, in the next life, we'll have to ask God about that. God is portrayed as our refuge and fortress. That word fortress, by the way, is the same word that they used for Masada. And Masada is like a plateau, big high mountain, flat on the top, one path going up. Is great for defense. And it didn't fall until, about 72 AD, when Rome built a ramp up and then it fell. Anyway, that's where David went. David was up on Masada. And it's just an amazing thing. And when you see that word fortress, that's that word right there. Paul the Apostle said, the Lord stood with me and strengthened me. He says, everybody's left, but the Lord is with me. And even when we think we are alone, the Lord is with me. I remember Alice Miller when Brother Hubbard died. After Fran had passed, he was there alone. Alice Miller said he wasn't alone. The Lord was with him. And we still have to think about that. The Lord is with us even when nobody else is. And that's what Paul's saying right there. God disciplines his children. How does God do that? I don't know. Does he make us go through difficult times as he did the children of Israel? Maybe. When we are going through difficult times, what are we doing with that? How do we feel about that? We need to say, well, if the Lord is trying to discipline me, what am I supposed to learn from this? And this came out this morning in the post, what do they call it after a game? They do a post talk. A post game. In the post game from the sermon this morning is the Judeans, the people that were carried off into Babylonian captivity. What was the lesson they were supposed to learn? Don't bow down to idols. Did they learn that lesson? Yeah. That was a tough lesson for them. Quit worshiping idols. And when they got back to Judea, did they worship idols? No, they did not. They didn't want any, even in the time of Christ, they didn't want any kind of graven image in the temple. Why? Because we don't worship idols. We learned that lesson the hard way. That's why. God disciplines his children. The Lord chastens whom he loves. As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. You know, these parents, here I'll talk about parents parenting just one minute. The ones that don't parent their children. They just let them do whatever. Do they really love them? Come on. That's not love. Love, they learn discipline as they are growing up. God's intervention is sometimes corrective rather than immediately pleasant. God can intervene for a good thing. Here's food, Elijah, and here's a punishment for this group of people. God can go both ways. God uses other people as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. We do bear one another's burdens. God sent Ananias to help Paul, the apostle, after his conversion. God strengthens his believers through his Spirit. How does that work? I don't know. Again, I don't know. To be strengthened with might through his Spirit in the inner man. If I am suddenly strong, I'm able to overcome a temptation, do I say, yeah, I did that? Yeah, maybe the Holy Spirit just kind of gave you a nudge. I don't know. Spirit himself makes intercessions for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. Through the Spirit demonstrates God's transforming work. You cannot add the fruits of the Spirit to your life without changing yourself for the better. God intervened miraculously. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, with Daniel, with Peter, with Paul, miraculously. Sometimes there's things happens in our life we can't explain. Who's to say that's not God's hand? I wouldn't say that. Passages that summarize God's ongoing activity. Here's the summary right here. We're getting close to the end. Hang on 2 more minutes. The Lord watches over his people, casting all your cares upon him. Why? He cares for you. Wow. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Everybody else can forsake you, but I won't leave you. God works all things according to the counsel of his will. How much of our life is controlled? Is it the minutia, the tiny little things? Did that light turn green because God wanted me to have a good day? I don't know. We'll just have to ask the Lord later on. Why did it turn green for me one day, and the next day I hit every red light down the road? I don't know. Is God trying to teach me patience on those days? Maybe. Be careful when you pray for patience. You may get things that you have to exercise patience about. All right, here's your personal application. Am I going through a period of testing, preparation, or waiting? And you ask yourself, what period am I in my life? Sometimes we just need to wait. You can take Moses' life, and he was 40 years in Egypt, 40 years in, the land of Midian, and then 40 years as the teacher, or as the leader of the Israelites. Sometimes in the middle of that 40 years, he was just out there watching sheep and goats. Is that doing what the Lord wanted him to do? Well, evidently. Not real exciting. What is God forming in me during this time? Am I responding with faith or fear? And it's hard for us to see the big picture. I don't know where I am half the time, and I don't know where I'm going the other half of the time. Do you feel like that? I do. How can I respond? I can only respond in two ways, faith or fear. And, all we can do is hang on to God's hand because he sees the big picture. Consider the purpose of your 40. Not to delay you, but to develop you. Is God trying to prepare you for something next? Are we coasting? It's something to consider. This is the last slide. The Bible frequently affirms that God acts in the lives of his people, but it often doesn't explain exactly how he does so. We don't know how God works. We know that he works, and we trust that he does. So where are you right now? And that's where we're going to have to leave it. Who's got our closing prayer?